Now we take a look at module number 10, culture change. This interests me because I watch over and over and over, every time some new guy gets a job or a new gal in an organization, one of their first speeches is, we're going to have to change the culture. But they can never say what they want to change it from, what they want to change it to, and why. We're going to show you evidence, the only evidence I think that exists that I know of, and maybe the only evidence ever, of real organization-wide change with data to back it up. And I showed these charts at a PMI event some years ago, and it was the Northern Virginia, I believe. It was Washington, D.C., Northern Virginia, I've forgotten for sure. A big thing, 1,000 people there. And I had these slides in my talk, and after the talk, the head of the chapter sent me an email, and she said, "Charlie, congratulations. This is the first evidence I've ever seen anywhere that there was an OD intervention that did any good at all." So let's take a look. Again, one of my people noticed something odd. We're working with NASA teams, separate out those data from our commercial. And he said, there's something strange here. The scores, the TDA scores, for the first time we worked with a team, is drifting upward. This is most peculiar. And the teams we'd never worked with are improving. So, by the way, these error bars are put on here for your convenience. We test all these things with sophisticated technique called the student t-test and verify this trend is real to 99% accuracy. What we saw was from 2003 to 2008, the scores of the NASA teams went up by about 10%. We also calculated the percent of NASA we engaged at that time is also about 10%. I view that as completely coincidental. So the question is, what's happening here? I really understand correlation is not causality. This is one of the benefits of doing this work and trained as a physicist. My mathematical background, as you might imagine, is pretty strong. So what is happening here, I don't know. The one possibility is NASA is becoming a better, more benign place to work. I can most assuredly tell you that is not the case. This is the period during which the Moon program is being evident to everyone. It can't be afforded, and it's in the process of being canceled. The agency is actually in a bit of a pretty serious morass. Then I remember at a workshop I did at Marshall Space Flight Center, and the workshop's going along kind of normally, and a guy jumps up, and at those times we don't do this anymore. We had a little laminate of the 4D system to hang on the wall. And the guy jumped up with his laminate and said, I get it. And I said, get what? He said, well, I've been working at this center for, the numbers aren't precise here, I don't recall, but 20 years. And I went away for 18 months on a detail and came back. And when I came back, this is the first time I ever enjoyed working here. I see that you guys have been changing the whole organization while I'm gone. And so, yes, the director of engineering at Marshall was a green badge. He got this work. He loved it. He embraced it. He took it throughout the organization at Marshall. And so I said, let's pull out the Marshall-only data, and let's see what we see there. If we're changing the effect, it should be somehow related to the amount of work we've done. Here's the data from Marshall Space Flight Center. It happens they're up 20% when you do the curve fit. It turns out, interestingly enough, that we had 20% of Marshall engaged. Again, here's the trend line. And what's fascinating is that it looks like, and I don't take this seriously, but it's kind of fun, that the effect is proportional to how many people are engaged. Here's exactly the same data with a little cleaner plot. Interesting to notice that Marshall actually started lower, ended up much higher than NASA at large. And by the way, we continue the work through 2013. It's just we didn't do the research because it's expensive, and we did it for the book to do the analysis and clean up these images. I have no reason to believe this isn't continuing. So there it is, the evidence that you actually have organizational-wide change. Now, how is it working? Well, I think there are two or three things. One is, remember, we're changing the fifth force. We're changing the social field. Every team that we change, everybody who interacts with that team will feel that field and change a little bit. And also there's some migration of people between teams. I don't think that much over this time scale, but that's certainly somebody who was in a team that did some development work, went to another team, maybe brought it along, talked about it. And of course, all these things were before we had the book, and I would expect the data to be even better with the book supplanting it. So that's another little fun piece. And again, I'll show you some more slides that are kind of on the side in a moment. Thank you for listening and watching, and see you soon.